Welcome to the Seller Roundtable e-commerce coaching and business strategies with Andy Arnott and Amy Wees.
Well, we have a listener that has a question about what is your day like now, right? You just talked about how you scaled your business and you are to that point now where you're working every day and doing your business full time and you're really focused on that. So what is your day like and how does that look?
How does it look? Usually I get up at like 5:30, 6 a.m. with the kids as a zombie. My wife's been up taking care of them at night. Get up, give them breakfast, like basically half asleep. My wife gets up, goes to work. She's a nurse. And then immediately my nanny comes and I get to work, right? The morning is my prime time. I'm working. So what am I working on, right? My sales are affected by COVID. I'm selling event and related products, right? It's affected, but it's all good. Why? I read the Profit First book. My business has cash. I can get through this downturn. It's all good. Long-term planner. So what am I doing? I'm designing packaging for my products right now. I'm working with several different designers on that. I'm scaling up my social media presence. I'm trying to get on TikTok. Get my products to be trending on TikTok. So you know how they have those for your page, so they copy this dance. I want my product to be on one of those pages by an influencer so that everybody has to buy that product. So when they're at home bored making TikTok videos as everybody's protesting, they have to buy my product to do this dance. Like, these sorts of strategies to, essentially still make yourself relevant in this weird business environment. So I've got a few initiatives this year. One of them is in retail. One of them is in social media. So those are the main initiatives that I'm doing, regardless of what my sales are doing. Being business owners, our income goes up and down, but I still have high hopes that, high beliefs that, we're going to get through this, and my business will too. So yeah, usually around like 1 or 2, if the wind's doing good, usually I'll go kite surfing for an hour or two, come back, make dinner, put the kids to bed, my wife goes to bed, and then I work for another 2 or 3 hours till midnight. That's my day, pretty much every day, regardless of weekend or weekday.
I love that. So let's talk about your strengths and weaknesses. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And how do you work on your weaknesses to overcome them?
Yeah, one of my huge weaknesses, I'm like extremely blunt and like almost to the point of being rude. And it's something I had to work on. It's like, hey, you have to be nice to people, Kevin. Like, you can't just tell them, you have to break it easy to them if they don't know what they're talking about. Another weakness is that I have high expectations that everybody else can understand and learn as quickly as I can. And so I'm very forgiving, or I'm very unforgiving when they can't learn as quickly as I expect them to do. So setting my expectations appropriately. 2 main weaknesses. Strengths. One strength that I have is that long-term thinker. So I set, long-term goals. Like I remember reading the 4-Hour Work Week, and it's, there's so many books I read, but that one just stands out in my mind because it's one of the first that propelled me down this journey. Now, there's really nothing that really exists. I don't intend to get to a 4-hour work week. I'm not sure if I want to be there. We need something to do in life, but that set me down a path of just really persistence and getting shit done. And also, I had this path of getting a work-life balance, and I've achieved that through being an entrepreneur. Being able to go kite surf in the afternoon and work my ass off in the morning and at night. And it's great. So that's been going on for 5 years, like having that goal, long-term goal, and sticking to it. Not just like, hey, yeah, I don't feel like doing it today, and just letting your business dissolve. It's because they're not motivated, or, just they get distracted to something else, to another brand or another, hey, let's do print on demand today. And then they let their other business dissolve. If you're constantly pivoting, you have zero focus, and then you don't get anything done. So that's been really, really helpful to me. What other strengths do I have? Here's another interesting thing. So when I'm in business, there's, Amy, I've taken some of this from you, which is like strategic times to like further your self-development and learn. So, there's different podcasts I'll listen to, or TED Talks. And so, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, cool. After I make dinner, put the computer away. It's like, okay, cool. It's time to relax. Maybe sometimes I'll have a little bit of time that I might actually be conned into watching TV with my wife, right? And so she'll want to watch it. And what do I want to do? I just want to sit and like turn on YouTube and watch a TED Talk, like, or sit,
Yes.
right?
I
And,
know you and I, and even Andy, like we're always like, we can message each other at 2 a.m. and we know that all of us will be up and thinking
yeah,
about
yeah,
something like business related. And it's why we're great friends, because we love this stuff
yeah,
and, we don't get tired of it. And we wouldn't rather watch TV. Like to us, that's not what it's about,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I love that about you. So we got to get into ninja tricks, right? What are your ninja tricks? You talked a little bit about the TikTok strategy. I saw a pretty cool video of a certain celebrity wearing your product, and I showed it to my daughter, and she was like, "Oh, wow, amazing!" So give
I
us
see
your
on that
ninja
one.
tricks on promoting products.
Ninja tricks. Uh,
What
I
are
don't know.
your favorite tips and tricks on promoting your
So,
products?
so recently I've been really getting in, reaching out to so many different influencers. And one thing that I've learned is that influencers, we all think that we have to pay them, but in fact, or either we have to pay them like an upfront fee, or we have to pay them a commission through what we call like a percentage for a custom link for them to go to our website, and they get a percentage of our revenue. Some of them, if you have an assistant, they can reach out to a mass spread of them and knows how to weed through them. A lot of them, they just feel like important by being a part of a brand, so they do it for free. And so I've been doing that recently, and that's been really cool because it helps them build their audience because they feel like they're exposed to my brand. They're important. They feel important because they're part of a larger brand, and they're getting free stuff, which is really minimal cost. So that's been really cool for me. What else? Ninja trick. One thing that I've done a lot of is, this is on Amazon specifically, is the main image, right? So I am also a photographer. So being able to really experiment and just perfect that main image. Done different case studies where you show like the main page, the search page, and you show yours and you Photoshop it in there and say, hey, pick out which product you think you'd buy, right? That's been great because, again, I've had quite a few copycatters, and it's just so freaking annoying that I can't protect against that. But I'm still trying to put a definitive advantage against myself, because that's what I want, an unfair advantage in everything that I do. So an unfair advantage on having the right photo. Some of these products that I'm selling are really hard to take photos of, believe it or not. So what else? Unfair advantage. Again, I mean, that's kind of the ninja trick in progress right now. I'm going into retail. Now, if you think about how, it's hard to get into retail, some of these big box retailers. So, and I'm like an affluent businessman who speaks English straight up. All of my other Chinese counterparts that are trying to knock off my products, do you think they even have a chance of doing that? Hell no. They don't have even a single chance. So I consider that a ninja trick to pivot into retail. Other ninja tricks is writing my own software to deal with this stuff. I really would rather write my own piece of software rather than buy it. I drive frugality into my business in everywhere that you can. If you have a chance, read the book Profit First. That has totally affected my business in the last 6 to 8 months. I just paid my tax bill today for like the estimate extension and all that. And it was all allocated. I had the money. There was no surprise. It was all expected. It's all good. That is amazing. Can't stress that enough.
That's awesome.
Absolutely, Kevin. So something I love to talk about is because, everybody, all the Amazon gurus, all the e-commerce gurus are always talking about, the seven figures, the Lamborghinis, all that. They never talk about how hard it was to get to where they are. So what were some of and a lot of times they might talk about like some business struggles, but it's very rare that you also hear about like some of the personal challenges. Any like major personal or, business challenges are part of that. If you're an entrepreneur, your business is part of your personal life. Any major issues while you were, either starting or running your business, and maybe that's something that somebody can learn from that?
The one that comes to mind is for me is when to become a full-time entrepreneur. So I was talking to a buddy about this, and he gave me this analogy of Batman. There's one of the Batman movies where he's stuck in a cave, and he has this rope hanging down, and you can like climb the side of the cave, right? And so what he'd do is he ties this rope around his waist, and as he's climbing the side of the cave, which is really difficult, and if he falls, he's not going to fall to his death, but he's going to bang his head against the wall as he's saved by this rope, right? And so that was essentially me, working my full-time job remotely as a software engineer and also building my business for the last 4 or 5 years. And it's really held me back in the growth I could have achieved running a full-time business, as my main gig. So what does Batman do to eventually get out of this cave? He removes the rope. He just says, fuck it, I'm going to commit and I'm going to get out of this cave because I know that there's nothing there to save me. So he knows that his life is on the line and he gets out. So that rope was my full-time job, right? It's holding me back. There is weight. It was holding him. It was even that much more weight to carry that rope up around his waist as he's climbing the cave, but it was also there to save him. So that was a serious personal struggle. And luckily my employer solved it for me by just laying me off, and it was great. So it was actually it was a day where they delivered the news to me, and I was like, oh my God, thank God, because I don't know if I could have quit. It was too chill of a job. I could work remote and just manage both things at once. And I remember going to my wife and I was like, oh my God, this might be one of the best days of my life. So
yeah, I remember hearing about it, and you weren't sad at all, and that's where I knew. As I told you too, remember I said, hey, this is going to be a blessing. I can tell already because of just the way that you reacted, right? I mean, sometimes you get these little pushes in life that are, if you don't do it yourself, sometimes it happens for you. It was kind of similar with my job when I finally quit, even though I should have done it years ago. I had a 7-figure app business that if I would have done full time, probably would have been a 8 or 9-figure app business. But
Yeah.
I had a similar, I didn't get laid off, but similar type of situation where I was just like, events happened at work where I was like, I can't put up with this anymore. And it's kind of crazy how that works, but I absolutely love that analogy. And that's a great share. Thank you for sharing that. So some other questions that we got from people listening, which is why I love having people, live, is what would you do differently? Like looking back, like if you had to start over again, whether it's e-commerce or whatever it is, that you feel like you wanted to do in the past, like, would you do anything differently in terms of, running your business, starting your business? I assume, quitting your job earlier probably would have been, one of them, but anything else?
Yeah, there's one thing that comes to mind. Like most of you have probably watched majority of the Shark Tank episodes. And one of the things that they've always said was like, hey, they'd say, hey, you have all these products, what's the best seller? And then, it's like the 80-20 rule, essentially, right? We've mentioned previously how I had all these SKUs, and I still do have a lot of SKUs, but I'm paring them down. And it's actually been several years that I've known of this 80-20 rule. Essentially, it means that 20% of your products generate 80% of your revenue, and 80% of your products generate 20% of your revenue. And so that was a rule that I knew about, and essentially the sharks say, hey, for the 80% that are generating little revenue, get rid of them. Focus on those 20% and sell them around everywhere, right? So there's a couple different thoughts to it. In my mind, I'm thinking, hey, if I have more products, I look like a more established brand, a more trusted brand. People will come to me for, a lot of stuff. But then it's more difficult to manage. You have to have software, which, helps, but it's still, there's more inventory tied up for all those. There's more money tied up in inventory for all those different products. And it's a cash flow game. It's being a consumer product goods company, it's a cash flow game. So finances are important. So anyways, it's taken me years to actually recognize that 80-20 rule applies to me, and I actually need to take action and to actually do it. So that's been something that I wish I would have done earlier. And so, yeah, when I'm taking my products to retail, I'm taking just those 20% and I'm pushing them to retail. The rest of them, they're basically off my PO sheets, and I don't
Yeah.
plan to reorder as much. They're still contributing revenue, but in reality, it doesn't make sense to not focus.
Yeah, Kevin, I think you made a lot of good points, and we've talked about this a lot because we have the same problem, right? We have like 800 SKUs. So what's been awesome though lately, with the only thing awesome probably out of the pandemic is, we've been selling a lot of old inventory that's been sitting that, we've disposed of some, but we didn't have the heart to dispose of some of the other stuff, and we're glad now because some of that stuff's moving. But it's so great because we're paring down. We're doing the same thing. We're applying the 80/20 as well, and just getting rid of all this, excess inventory, excess SKUs. If you have the systems in place and the staff in place, and you're a fairly large company, having a lot of SKUs probably wouldn't be a big deal. But as a smaller company, less than 5 employees or something like that, the more SKUs you have, the less you can, the harder it is to optimize the listing, to get a good photo, to like do all these basics that are really, really important, that are almost impossible. I mean, that's one of the reasons I built Seller SEO, is because I just couldn't manage it, the way everybody else is. So I'm also like doing the same exact thing, paring down, trying to get really focused. To me, I think the sweet spot for products is like, 10 to 20, maybe, really, niching down, being the expert in whatever you're doing, right? If you get, niche down enough, or you've created your own product and you have accessories for that product, or complements, complementary products, that's kind of the dream and the ideal, right? Because then you can really laser focus on that. Your persona, who you're selling to, your audience, all that. You can iterate on those products. You can do, products that, like you said, feed off of each other. So, those are two different ways to do it. You can either go wide or go focused. Looking back, I agree with you completely, Kevin. I would have gone way more focused. I also have products that have expiration dates, right? So that's another thing a lot of people don't realize is, if you have products that are either trending type products, or products that have a shelf life, or, can expire, things like that. Those are a lot of things people don't think about. If you buy a product that, like, that's why we started shifting a lot more into like survival office products, things like that, because that never expires, right? People are always going to need those products. So that's another thing to think about is, if you go into a market where you're having, I mean, like grocery, and then grocery is a huge, category right now that a ton of people are jumping into. But what a lot of people don't realize is that's a risky category, because if you are, say in this area, we have a lot of eggs, right? A lot of egg, distributors and wholesalers and things like that around here. But eggs have a shelf life. If all of a sudden there's a new diet out that says, hey, if you eat eggs, it makes you sick and gain weight, and all of a sudden people stop buying eggs, and you've got a warehouse full of eggs that expire in 2 weeks, you're out that money. So that's also something to think about. There's so many little intricacies there in picking products, picking a category, and things like that. That being said, any other advice, Kevin, to like, sellers starting out, like some pitfalls or some basics that you can, share with people on, how you think they should get started?
In my opinion, there's so many people that they just want to like research and just really make everything perfect. And it's just complete opposite from how I approached it. I want progress. I want instant gratification. I want to make the first sale in the first hour, if possible. How fast does it take for this little handmade thing to get to Amazon? Can I sell it in the next hour? I know that's sort of hyperbolic, but just like trying to remove blockages. Like if you're blocked by, but yeah, what is it? Any bad decision is better than any indecision. And I couldn't agree with that more. However, there's one thing that I think is really common with people in our industry, which is they're just like, well, screw it, I'm just gonna buy it. I'll buy 3,000 of them, and then they're stuck with a product that's not selling. Like that's really common. So yeah, like do that rapid prototyping, that rapid iteration process, but try to do it at small scale and validate it before you move to larger amounts, because then you'll be stuck with all that product in your garage just sitting on it and selling it at a loss or just trashing it. Would you guys agree that that's like really common?
Yeah, for
on the
sure.
street.
And when you were saying that, I just ran into a quote yesterday, the day before, that I thought was awesome, because this is sort of how I operate. And like you said, there are, pluses and minuses to it, but it's General Patton. It was a good plan violently executed right now is far better than a perfect plan executed next week.
Yep.
So when you're starting out, I definitely agree with that quote. Now, once you're into your business, that might not be the same, but so many people are, the analysis paralysis, and always coming up with a roadblock or an excuse, like this isn't perfect, that isn't perfect. I don't have my Facebook page isn't set up yet. It's like, who gives a shit? People just try it. Some of the biggest mistakes looking back in my life is just the fear, right? Just the fear to get started. So many people have that fear. And once once you pass that fear, once you fail, once you have that first failure, you're like, oh, it's really not that bad. In your mind, it's 10 times worse than the reality, right? Like, failure is always like so much worse in our mind. We always create that failure that's so much worse in your mind than in reality. So I feel like that is such a great quote. And folks, I think between Amy and I and Kevin, that's some of the best advice we can give you guys. We're not saying go buy 2,000 units, just like Kevin said. That's why we love this sourcing small thing, right? Because it lets you violently execute that plan right now, right? It's not perfect, but it's going to get you out the door, and that's going to be far better than the 90% of people who sign up for their Seller Central account and never post a single product. So guys, that's what we want to leave you guys with. Now, that being said, Kevin, we talked about this a little bit before, but let people behind the curtain, because I feel like so many people, their lives get changed so much by what they consume. So what are your favorite books? You already mentioned 4-Hour Work Week, podcast, motivational materials, kind of things that help people along the way. I think personal development was another thing that if somebody asked me if I could redo in my 20s, if I would have done more personal development, I would have been so much further along than I am now.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Probably if you go on Amazon, just look at the top, what is it? The top business books, like the top 5 or 10 influential properties. God, I forgot the name of the books now. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, Economics 101. That was really interesting, really pertinent to the political climate we're in right now. What else? Marketing 101. I think you got me turned on to that one, Andy. I really like that podcast. I'm, of course, listening to Tim Bush's podcast, On the Shelf. Love that thing. I listen to TED Talks too. So like, we listen to all these books on like finance and like e-commerce entrepreneurship, or marketing podcasts. But there's a lot of things that are left out as far as like emotional intelligence when it comes to managing a team, or to like, actually interacting with like large retail buyers. Those sort of things are really important. They have a lot of TED Talks on that, which is, something where for some reason I sit down at the couch and I watch it on my TV rather than on my computer, because I have YouTube on my TV. So it's almost like, hey, rather than watching, whatever that next season of the useless,
And Handmaid's Tale, that's what my wife is into right now. And I was like,
yeah.
so with the world being so depressing already, I'm like, do you really I will leave the room when she puts that show, and it's riveting. It is. It's like, I want to, they've got all these gotchas, but yeah, it's just like, I don't want that extra, weight on me.
Yeah, but also, Amy got me turned on to Facebook groups, and I think I'm part of like freaking 2,000 Facebook groups or something, and it's insane. And like, just the information that's fed from you from there, and different perspectives, and yeah, that's been such a cool asset. And we used to have forums back in the day, like forums, you have to log into each one differently, but Facebook has done it so well that they actually have it all in your feed now, all in Facebook, and the Facebook groups are now the new forums. So that's so cool. You can, not only can you do it with business, but you can do it with like your audience, with your target audience, your different niches. So you can validate products in there. You can ask the customers what they think of a product, as long as it doesn't sound like it's a solicitation. You can learn about business. There's different memes, right? So one of the things that I struggle with is, like, on a daily basis, if I'm trying to change a habit or something, I need to be reminded on a daily basis. So I've tried like put like a meme or a photo on my wall to help remind me like, hey, Kevin, don't be so rude and be so blunt to people, right? So that'd be one of the things that I would put on my wall previously. But what happens is it almost just becomes another picture frame on your wall, and you don't realize it after the first week. It's just there. You don't even acknowledge it. But if you're on like some of these positive groups on Facebook, they're feeding you different content every day to reinstill that back into your brain and, every day. And if you do that times 1,000 groups for business, for positivity, for emotional intelligence, for, finance, for investing, for real estate investing, it's just like this bit. Facebook now becomes less of a tool for, politic bullshit and, friends, babies, which is cool too, but and more of a tool for business and personal development. If you can curate your feed to be like that, it's so cool. And then also download that little plugin for Chrome to get rid of politics from Facebook.
Yeah.
I love that too.
Yeah, see, that's one of the things. Well, getting banned from Facebook was one of the reasons I was involved less in Facebook. But I've really enjoyed LinkedIn. I mean, that's why I like LinkedIn, is because you're taking. I mean, with what's going on now, the politics and things are spilling over into LinkedIn now, which is frustrating. But I get it, because it's all encompassing. I mean, it's, as Americans, we're all in this now. So that's a little bit frustrating, but that's why I've been really loving LinkedIn, is because as a business person, I feel like I'm getting the most value out of that.
I feel like LinkedIn is so spammy. It's like
well, in the
so
groups, the groups.
The groups. Yeah. Okay. See, I haven't dabbled that much into LinkedIn groups. So I'm gonna have to get into that more.
The groups are pretty pretty spammy. I don't feel like the conversations, like the personal feeds, are that bad. But yeah, I mean, Kevin, one podcast, and everybody else, check this podcast out, is the Life Coach School. I know it seems like a weird, unless you're a life coach, you're like, why would I listen to this podcast? But Kevin, you were talking about like the daily, like the keeping your mind straight and positivity and things like that. If you guys want a great podcast for that, especially during these times, where, there's so much depressing stuff going on. There's so much, negativity. It's such a great, positive message coming out of her. And she's got a ton of great kind of like life hacks on how to keep your mind straight. So check that out, guys, if you haven't yet. Anything else, Kevin? I know you mentioned some great books. I mean, like, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Amy and I and everybody else who's been on here, I pretty much like that's the Bible, right? So in terms of business.
Yeah, I think that this one is really pertinent. If we have a lot of beginners on here, they're like trying to get into, like, let's say they're trying to open an Amazon company. They're likely considering other investments as well, right? They might be considering maybe a real estate investment. As the economy turns down, they might be looking for a deal on buying a business or buying a restaurant that's been freaking overrun by the protesters. I don't know, right? But here's the thing. Whoever you're getting advice from, consider where their income is from. This is from the Rich Dad Quadrant, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, whatever.
Cash flow quadrant.
But cash flow quadrant. Yeah, the author is sort of weird if you look at interviews from him, but his content is so cool. Robert Kiyosaki. But anyways, if you look at, you have to consider where the person's getting their money from. And people aren't always exactly clear with it too. People embellish on their income, and it drives me nuts, especially in the Amazon world on revenue. They never disclose profit. It's such bullshit. But anyways, where does their money come from, right? So let's say that you're gonna let's say you're gonna get advice from somebody on investing in I don't know, the stock market. So you're gonna call TD Ameritrade, and you're gonna get advice from some dude that's an employee. He's gonna tell you where to put your 401k money. Where's he making his money from? He's not making it from the investments. He's making it from being an employee. Are you gonna listen to him? Fuck no. You shouldn't listen to him, right? It's my opinion. Now, if you find somebody who, like Andy, he's doing flipping houses now, or he's flipped a couple houses. Now, you might consider listening to him because he's made some money doing it. Right now, if I found somebody who professionally flips houses in California, yeah, I want to ask them to be my mentor. Now, somebody who made money on Bitcoin, I don't know. That's sort of like winning the lottery. I probably wouldn't listen to anybody in that industry who made money with Bitcoin. But yeah, it's just also like, let's take the consideration of, buying a restaurant during this downturn. I imagine there'll be deals that be had. This is when people make money. So let's say you want to go buy a restaurant. And let's take me for an example. Let's say somebody approaches me, hey, you want to buy my restaurant for 30 grand? It's really worth 10 times that. Well, let's see. Have I ever worked in a restaurant? No. Have I ever managed a restaurant? No. Have I ever owned a restaurant? No. Do I have a mentor who has done any of those? No. Now, if I did, maybe I could be mentored into it. But otherwise, what the hell are you doing buying a restaurant, right? So do what you know. And so, yeah, I think that's really relevant because, again, as we go into this recession, this is when opportunities are going to arise. And I hate to see people just jump on things because they were, tipped off to go buy Bitcoin on the internet somewhere.
Yeah, Kevin.
Mentor is so important.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And I think that's, yeah, I mean, the people to learn from are the people who are in the trenches, right? Who are the people who are doing it every day. I think those are the best people to learn from. Those are definitely the people to learn from. And I absolutely agree with you that kind of the silver lining to all of this, folks, is if you keep an open mind and you really look around, there's so many opportunities right now. Even though we're in a rough state, there are so many opportunities around, not only to make money, but to help people at the same time. Right. And that's where, I get frustrated and I struggle with being guilty for making money. Right. And it's one of those things that you have to get over. You have to get over being guilty for making money. Making money will enable you to, number one, follow your dreams, take care of your children, and hopefully do some good in the world. Right. I mean, that's really what you can do with money. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that's another why it's such a great book is, to me, growing up, especially if you didn't grow up in a family that had a lot of money. I mean, we were, probably middle class, but like growing up in a family where you don't have a ton of money, a lot of times money is talked, negatively. It's a negative thing because if you don't have it, you don't want it to be something that your kids are like, we don't have money, our life sucks, right? So you don't want to teach that. What you want to teach, though, is that, money can be empowering. It can be empowering in so many different ways. So I think that, Kevin, you make so many great points there. That being said, we've gone long, and Kevin, that between you, Amy, and I, we could probably do a 3-hour podcast, because we could just chat about so many different things. But I think that this was awesome. I think people are going to get a ton out of it. That being said, I don't think you have anything to plug, but how can it, feel free to if you do. But if not, how can people get a hold of you?
They can find me on Andy or Amy's group. Kevin Dickinson, just reach out to me. If you send me a message on Facebook and you're not my friend, try and send in this first message like, hey, this is what I need and this is what I heard you from, blah, 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 rather than just like, hey, Kevin, and then
or the wave or the happy face. I just ignore those. Yeah.
So
hi, hello, hello,
that's a great,
hi,
great,
hello. It's like
hello.
block.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. As usual, everybody here who's live, we really appreciate you guys showing up live. Really, once again, we got some great questions today, and that really helps us to make the show better for everyone. So thank you guys so much for joining us here live. Those of you listening on the podcast, if you haven't done, please rate, review, subscribe. We really, really appreciate that, guys. The podcast is continuing to grow. We're really trying to not make this an Amazon podcast, even though that's kind of how it started. And, that's our core still, but we really want to give you guys all the tools that we can, all the things that we're doing, things that we see that are working, trends that are working, everything that's, that can help you guys ditch your day job. Because I think when it comes down to it, that's one of the main, when we talk to, most people who listen to the podcast, it's probably their number one thing, right? They want more freedom. They want to kick their day job or whatever they're doing now to the curb because they don't enjoy it. They don't get the free time. They don't get time with their kids, things like that. So guys, we really want to help you guys get there. So, once again, Amy and I are fairly available. You guys can reach out to us. I always give my email, I might get a little spam here and there, but andy@sellerseo.com if you want any questions directly to me. I really try to get back to you guys. Sometimes it might take me 3 to 4 days because my inbox just overflows, but I really, really try to reach out to you guys and respond, personally to you. So feel free to reach out. And we just updated the website, sellerroundtable.com. We got some resources there. We will continue to improve that. We're going to try to put all the resources, all the tools, kind of everything Amy and I do all in one place to make it easy for you guys. I know in the past we've kind of been all over the place in terms of sending you to this website, and that brand, and all those things. We want to send you to the sellerroundtable.com website, and then you guys will be able to navigate from there and hopefully get you guys what you need from there. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you 1 p.m. Tuesday. sellerroundtable.com/live is the new link if you want to go there and join us live every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Thank you, Kevin, for being here. Thank you, Amy, as usual. Enjoy your pressure cooked meal. Is it not pressure cooked today?
It's slow cooked spaghetti.
There we go. Fantastic.
Nice.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on Seller Roundtable.
Thanks for tuning in. Join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for live Q&A and bonus content after the recording at sellerroundtable.com. Sponsored by the ultimate software tool for Amazon sales and growth, sellerseo.com and amazingathome.com.